Hello and welcome to the first episode in Dawn of Defiance's podcast-style series where we talk with the devs about current and upcoming game features, early access, game philosophy, and any behind-the-scenes developments we think would be helpful for our players. In early access, we're trying our best to avoid cutting corners and striving for quality over speed, but that does mean there will be windows where players have less updates. And during those times, we want to continue to provide as much transparency on our progress as possible so you can have more faith in the vision and work we're doing and a better understanding of our dev goals and challenges. That being said, before we dive into the topic for today's episode, a quick recap on our latest news. Our roadmap was published on December 4th alongside a teaser for our upcoming content update, Sisters of the Deep. Some questions that have come up since our most recent Quality of Life patch in November, and I just wanted to address those here as well. The November patch did change locations for ore nodes and the art for ore nodes. So if you're struggling to find resources, you are not crazy. Most fan wiki and guides are likely still outdated, but players in our mods, in Steam discussion, and in the Discord, we're happy to help you with anything. And I'll be working to add some guides myself to Steam and social for specific topics. And since I've also been seeing players struggling to hunt boar, there's a super brief video posted to help you with that, so please follow us on social media for more of those tips, tricks, and guides coming from me. Now let's connect with our developers for a conversation about the character creator, which is, of course, a much requested, much questioned feature listed on our new roadmap. So I'm here with Dwight and Tony, two of our developers. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. We can start with Tony. Say hello.
Hello, I'm Tony.
Tony is the game director. He'll add no additional notes to this. That's all you need to know about Tony. Great job. Dwight?
Hey, how's it going? I'm Dwight.
Okay. And Dwight is the art director. So I will add that as well, since they do not want to contribute this information
Do you agree
themselves.
with that, Dwight?
Agree with what? Nah. Whatever it is, nah.
I'm going to ask you some very important questions. If you could add any form of facial hair to the in-game character for Dawn of Defiance, what would it be and why? Super important.
Facial hair.
I will not hold you to actually adding this in a character creator at any point. So if you feel like, oh, let me go and add that that merchant facial hair from Fable, where it's super curled up at the sides.
I got an idea of that. Definitely not that though. I think I got to go with the iconic 300. Full beard, full beard, bald head.
We're almost there.
Almost there.
I'm gonna say like chops, like the big sideburns. But what I would actually do probably is the full beard that goes all the way across, but you shave just the chin off.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
A reverse
it's kind
goatee.
Of like a biker. It's like a biker look. No, you got the sideburns all the way down. You got the full beard, and then you just shave the chin out.
Okay. Wait, full beard with that, or like the handlebars?
No. Full beard, all the way full beard, but you shave the chin. Jeez. It's real trashy. But I love it.
Okay, so I asked this question, of course, to segue into the fact that this episode of our series where we talk about features on the roadmap or features that we want to improve in the game of Dawn of Defiance, we will be talking about the character creator, which is on our new roadmap that we just posted. So I wanted to go through and just ask some questions about that topic, and so we can help players understand a bit where we're going with that, how they can expect to see that implemented over time, or what won't be implemented over time, that sort of thing. So I guess we can just start with, why did we decide that this was one of the features we wanted to add to the roadmap?
I think a character creator's a crucial part of any type of game in this genre, and to help the player himself kind of dive in, or herself to dive into the character that they're playing as, and people like that aspect of it. One of our pillars is customization in our game, so character creator fits really nicely into that as well.
Tony really nailed I guess where I'm coming from as well, which is it's almost a staple.
And us being called out for not having it is a fair assessment, because it's a part of the genre. It's so tightly knit into it, and it's not an oversight in the sense that it's not in yet. Work on the character creator has already begun, but it just touches every aspect of development. It's character work, it's animation work, it's UI work. It's doubling our animation needs, our model for armor. It's touching engineering side for storing the data that you've chosen. So it's just a big feature that it's going to take longer to implement with a team of our size.
We want to do it right the first time. we don't want to put in something that's half baked and doesn't work or it's broken. So rather just take the time to do it right the first time. So it's an acceptable experience for everyone.
And people have called out, why don't you just use the male animations or just throw stuff in? It's like, not everyone's going to listen to these kind of dev talks and stuff. So we'll put that in and then we'll get called out in negative reviews or whatever it's all male animations, like they're cutting corners and stuff. So for us in this time of EA, we need to be very careful with what we release out to the public, because most people that listen to these understand where we're coming from. They know we're a small team, but the ones that don't, which is probably a majority of the players, they're not going to understand that side. So they're just going to, we'll get review bombed or something for not doing it. So we want to make sure that we do things the right way, which, again, because of our team size, just takes a little longer for us.
Yeah, I think I'd read a comment recently of something about, like, you can go to the Unreal Engine store and buy like a female character model to use right now. And I was like, I knew you guys would have thoughts on that.
Yeah, and the term asset flip gets tossed at games a lot recently. I've even seen it in our reviews, which is funny because we have very little assets from the marketplace in our game. But it's a term now that's just coined for a studio trying to just cash in, basically, right? You do easy implementation and make money off of it. And that is not the direction that we've taken at all with it. So for us, we can't really just grab something from the marketplace and throw it in, because then there's that backlash of, you could get called out for something like that now too, which is interesting.
And we've seen that played out in other games. I'm not going to name any specifically, but there were a few indie titles with small teams similar to ours that got called out for just having one asset that was bought from the marketplace. So it's the marketplace can be very deceiving for people who are unfamiliar with game development, because this wasn't the case several years ago. So the wide accessibility of 3D models and 2D assets, it makes it seem as if everything is just plug and play. And to create something of quality, even if we take that in and implement it, we would still have to touch it. We still have to massage it a little bit, improve it, optimize it, make sure it's performant. Like the long list of things you'd have to go through when you're making a game properly, right? So even if we were to do that, it would still take time. And it's just, it's like Tony was saying, it's unfortunate because most of the people who are looking at this video would understand where we're coming from, but the rest don't.
Since we're on the topic too, like, I have a lot of respect for the people that can take a lot of assets from the marketplace and make a game out of it, because I think that is a misunderstanding. Like, it isn't just download and plug in. There's a lot that goes into implementing assets in general and the way that you're doing it for your game. So a character could be set up a certain way from an outsourcer or from a freelance person putting stuff on the marketplace, but to get it into your animation blueprints and to work with your animations, there's a lot of steps and processes to get all of those random assets from the marketplace to be a cohesive game. So that's even not an easy task by itself.
You mentioned earlier that technically we have started some of the character creator, the female player model stuff. So I wanted us to just expand a little bit on sort of like where that's sitting right now. When we first went into early access on the frequently asked questions, I had put that we had a female player model, but she wasn't ready.
Yeah, I would say it would be like pre-production is what I would call it. So the documentation for how we're going to implement character creator, the UI experience, or the features that are available for the players to choose, like this is, hairstyles or faces, or how deep we're going to go with letting them swap between noses and mouth. Those kind of documentations are written up, done. We have scoped out the length at which it'll take to implement those type of things. And then, like you said, a female character has been started as far as anatomy and sculpting side. But beyond that, there's a ton of actual implementation work. Armor sets need to get changed and tweaked for her. Animations would need to get fixed or created new once the female model and the female skeleton for that model is ready to be animated on.
So it's currently not even in progress on the roadmap, and that's primarily because it's really hard to determine at which point in those updates we're going to be seeing the first implementation of them.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that when we put something in progress, it's most likely getting ready for the next update, which this one would probably span a few updates as we're working on it kind of on the back end.
That's another thing I wanted to talk about, is that like we had talked about how we might go about implementing it in terms of having the first iteration of the character creator might just offer you some like subtle ways to differentiate yourself from other players with sort of a female player model coming soon feature, so people know that that's going to be an option eventually, and then in future updates adding in more components and more customization in the female player model. Is that still the plan?
Yeah, and I think for early access, for us to say we're implementing something, the biggest thing is we're not going to go back and rework what we did. So we want to make sure, even if it's like the version 0.1 of where we're headed, all the hooks and stuff need to be there for us to build towards that final approved documentation or GDD saying, this is how we want this feature to be. So what we wouldn't want to do is veer off and put in something that's just easy and gets it fulfilled in game, knowing that we're going to have to rework it towards this V1 kind of doc that's been finalized. So the first implementation of the character creator might be slimmed down where there won't be as many choices, but a lot of the choices should be there as far as we need those hooks available for engineering to store the correct data, for art to make the right type of assets, stuff like that.
Yeah, with that character creator, I mean, if I can start at the high level, there's a user experience and UI both working together to actually make something worthwhile for the player, essentially, right? Like we want it to be actually impactful. So when I actually go into this character creator, trying to switch certain things on the player, it should actually look pretty good. The process of actually switching to these different options should actually feel pretty good as well. But the pre-production side of this, we actually have to plan, what does that even look like, right? Like, is this something that's interactive where we're isolating the character by itself? Is this something where it is more integrated into the map, where when you first start off, immediately when you finish creating your character, you start on the map, right? Like there's so many different types of experiences that we would have to figure out what's best for our game before we even start getting into how do we figure out the armor differences between the male and the female, right? How do we figure out animations between attacks, locomotion, death, idling? There's a long list of animation packages that we would have to ultimately find a balance. Like, is there anything in this that we can share? Maybe it's the weapons. Is there anything that we need to make a bespoke version for the female? Most likely the locomotion. And once you start tallying up all of the things that we have to do to make this work, I'd say there's a lot of problems that we would have to solve. And I think that's a tough part right there, right? Because to get everything we want, it's going to take a lot of time. So we'll have to do this in sections. I would say you have the V1, a V2, a V3, a V4 version of this character creator, and at each update, you should see some type of improvement or new things change or new options for you to like modify on your character. But all of that needs to be planned ahead of time. I'd say animation's got it bad. Animation's got it pretty bad. We do have an in-house animator, so he's gonna have fun looking at that and playing that mini game on what he can do to make that work. And then I'd say character artists have it right behind them, figuring out how we can revise some of the current armor sets, or do we have to make something completely new from scratch? Pretty confident we can figure that out.
We decided not to let our animator take breaks and eat lunch, right?
No. He's pretty much a robot at this point.
Okay. Perfect.
We have him in a Google Meet call 24/7. He has to record himself, so we know that he's at his desk. Something that I was thinking about, and maybe something that has occurred to people as well that have been like, feel like this should have been a higher priority on the roadmap, or that we should be not necessarily sacrificing work on other features to get this in earlier. It made me think about sort of like whether or not the work for this is interchangeable with some of the work that's being done elsewhere. And for instance, in terms of like this upcoming patch is adding this new boss fight, which is going to have a like new enemy that I know like a model is being worked on. And so some players might think like, why are we adding a new boss fight and instead of this character model? For me, I was just thinking of that work isn't necessarily interchangeable, right? Like
it's like you're in my head. These are the questions I have to ask myself constantly at the game director level of which features are going to add value and stuff to the game.
So you're saying I'm basically a game director?
Yeah. Well, no, whoever asked the question in the community is the game director. Okay. You're just facilitating the info back to me.
I'm speaking for them. And they can all take your job at any point.
You're assistant to the game director.
Nice. I'll take it.
No, these are the type of questions that I have to weigh out all the time with the value that it adds to the game, the requests coming in from the player base, the requests coming in from the developers internally, because believe it or not, they have opinions too on what they want to see in the game. And some of it is a one-to-one trade when we're talking about character to character. There's a possibility that like those could be pretty equal there. Now, when I'm talking about the character creator as a whole, we talk about the UI work and the engineering work. That's a bigger scope than just saying character creator versus a boss. Like those are not equal. But if we're talking about like a Minotaur versus a Satyr, those could be very similar to say, sure, we could have went with that one over the other one. But I see a lot of questions of like, why are you working on audio design when you need to be working on programming? It's like those are very different and those are not one-to-one. And to hear things like this game did it, so why didn't you do it? Those are also not equal comparisons. Those are very much apples to oranges when it comes to comparing some things. A feature as big as the character creator, there's not an easy way to slot that into development and just say we'll remove a character. What we would need to remove is a lot of UI work, a lot of character work, and a lot of animation work, and then a lot of engineering like save data and stuff work to say now the character creator fits in scope of the large production we're going towards for this update. And that's why the character creator itself is a bigger task that's rolling out over a few updates, as far as it will take us that much time. Not we're going to roll it out in piecemeal, but it will take time because character art may be able to slot in. Well, we can work on the female now and some armor sets, but animation's not ready and UI is not ready. They'll be ready when they're freed up after this update to then jump on the character creator. So we're talking about a big feature like this that touches so many departments. You know, it's like slotting it in. There's a lot of kind of pegs and stuff to this one that it doesn't just kind of fit in equally with like a character. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting because I keep forgetting about this sort of UI UX part of the character creator. Like Dwight was mentioning of like, is character creator going to be in the main menu or does it open up once the world is loaded? And it's like, that's all stuff that I hadn't personally thought that much about too. So,
and those two scenarios change how we save data, where we save your character versus is it saved in the world? Is it saved outside as its own thing that you could jump between worlds with? Like that one little decision changes how we set up the back end of a character creator.
And I'd say that also opens you up for additional feedback and criticism where it's okay, now that you've made your character, can I go back and make adjustments? It's like I don't like the way, you know, my face looks now. I don't like the complexion that we have. Oh, actually I want to play female now. You know, it's just adding that in opens it up for more, you know, requests from the player base and whatnot, which is not a bad thing at all. But it's I say that to emphasize that it's not a one and done. I think it's a hunger that we would never be able to sustain or satisfy. So this is where Tony's job is kind of hard here, right? He's gotta make a bottom line. You know, he's got to make a bottom line of this is the character creator. This is what we're giving the players the ability to customize. Here's some room for additional, you know, improvements that we can do based off of player feedback, and that is it. Because what that means is that not everybody's going to be happy.
Yeah, and then ultimately too, when you release something, the community gets used to it, and so any change, even if it's better as a whole, will frustrate or upset certain people. You know, because they like it a certain way. Yeah, yeah.
That you're not going to make the perfect game where everybody's going to be happy with literally 100% of the things that you guys have made. Do the best we can.
Thank you guys for being here. If you want to say goodbye or say any closing words.
I agree.
Fantastic.
What? Thanks for listening.
Thank you for your time.
Great. Okay, Alice, I will let you guys go. Thanks again to Dwight and Tony. We hope this has shed some light on the character creator and where it stands in early access. So please join us again for the next episode where we will discuss early access generally, as well as an important component being addressed and improved in our Sisters of the Deep update, biome-based survival. If you have a burning question you'd like me to ask our devs in that upcoming episode specifically about early access or biome-based survival, please come to the related thread on Reddit, Steam discussions, or Discord to leave your questions, and I will try my best to cover them. Besides that, the 21st of December, this Saturday, marks the winter solstice, which in ancient Greek was a time for honoring Poseidon, who presided over the months now known as December and January. As defiers to celebrate the winter solstice, we will be dishonoring Poseidon. And I encourage you to join us in our Discord and on social this Saturday to post your Poseidon hatred, Poseidon memes, and your acts of defiance, which will net you some Discord XP. Likewise, there's also a new Timble Trackers build challenge up for interested players. You can find the details on social. Thank you guys for joining me. Talk again soon, and long live the Defiance.